And now, The Money Show
with Stephen Grootes on 702.
Let's walk the talk.
The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by ABSA Corporate and Investment Banking. ABSA is a proud lead sponsor of B20 South Africa 2025. Good evening. 10 minutes after 6, I'm Stephen Grootes. Gold finally hitting $4,000 an ounce overnight. The anticipation was beginning to kill me. And of course, the conversation starts again. Where is the peak? I've absolutely no idea. I know John Matham told me today it's $4,236 is where he thinks the peak is going to be. I am absolutely going to hold him to it. You may have your own crystal ball or your own very complicated AI kind of algorithmic equation that allows you to predict where the peak is. Frankly, I think anyone who says they know is wrong. I think this is the only thing to say when it comes to this. There are plenty of very clever people with years of experience trying to work out where peak gold is. And so far, almost all of them have got it wrong. It really is extraordinary. We'll talk a little bit more about that. We'll speak to Bernard Swanepoel, the chair of the Junior Mining Indaba, of course, a former mining CEO himself, vast experience in all of this. The Junior Mining Indaba underway in Joburg. Greta Mantashe, the Minister of Mineral Resources, is due to speak there tomorrow. And in a way, perhaps the most interesting thing will be the reaction that he gets when he walks in. I imagine people will be very polite, but we know relations between him and the industry not great at the moment. An incredible story coming off a SARS statement overnight around Lucky Montana, and we'll speak to Charles de Wet, the tax lawyer, in a moment. Because essentially SARS is saying to Lucky Montana, who used to run PRASA, he's now an MK MP, if you don't stop lying about our conduct, we'll tell the nation your tax details. Now, as you know, SARS has previously gone to court to not release someone's tax details. So it's an astonishing story. More on that in a moment. I was talking to you last night about social media, and in fact, you might well have been one of the people who WhatsApped us your experience of social media at the moment. And I started off by saying in my tiny focus group of, friends and colleagues, many people were saying they just weren't spending any time or nearly as much time on social media anymore. Most of you who got in touch said, actually, you don't spend as much time either, obviously different from person to person. Well, hot on the heels of that, the Financial Times today, publishing data, real accurate data, I presume accurate, saying that, yes, there is a very big shift and people are moving away from social media. Not so much in the United States, by the way, which might explain their politics. And I thought that was very interesting. We'll talk a little bit more about that. And if you're trying to predict where this is going to go, Dion Chang is your person. We'll speak to him at around 20 to 7. And there is a whole set of industries that really hinges on this. And I mean, I think we all know why, if we are spending less time on social media, why. It's the lack of authenticity. Firstly, from the humans who are still on there, and secondly, from AI slop, the AI nonsense. And the corporate stuff, just too much corporate stuff. You go on LinkedIn, and I started thinking, okay, this is quite exciting. And then I sort of realized everyone's just hustling for business. Me too, by the way. Or if they're trying to do something, or they're trying to do something like that, or it's a kind of corporate announcement, or it's just nonsense, a very crafted video. And I mean, I get it. I engage in it too sometimes, I suppose. But I'm also, in a way, it suddenly becomes not fun. And I remember when Twitter, as it was then, actually was fun. Used to enjoy it. And suddenly things change. So anyway, very interesting. And influencers suddenly might find that actually they don't have what they used to have. On the other hand, social media for a lot of people is the cheapest form of entertainment there is, because all you need is a bit of data, and you often don't even need to pay for that if you're lucky enough to be near a Wi-Fi hotspot. The Institute for Race Relations, and you'll have heard of them over the years, and as we know more recently, their stance seems to have changed a little bit, kind of anti-BEE, campaigning against those kind of measures. They've got a big report out about all of that. We'll hear them out on the subject. We'll have a conversation with them. Looking forward to that conversation in a way before 7 o'clock. Good to hear from you. I know you'll have a view on social media. Also, keen to hear your predictions if you have one. Peak gold, where you think it'll go. 011 883 0702 021 446 0567 and voice notes tonight on 072 702 1702.
The Money Show
with Stephen Grootes, live on 92.7 and 106 FM. Streaming on the Prime Media Plus app
and DSTV channel 856.
6:15. Well, an astonishing statement from SARS overnight. it's now threatening to publish the confidential tax information of the former PRASA CEO, Lucky Montana. They say he's lying about the actions of SARS in this case. News 24 reporting that Montana has said he's accused of owing SARS around 55 million rand. He says SARS has behaved illegally. SARS says it's done nothing wrong. Montana, you may recall, was accused of corruption during the state capture era when he was at PRASA. This was during the locomotives deal. This was during the locomotives that were too tall for our railways. And I came across quite a nice summation of it in Open Secrets on their website. They said reports and court judgments indicate that private interests were protected and enabled within PRASA, namely by the ex-CEO Montana and the board under the chairmanship of Sfiso Buthelezi, who then actually became, I think, a deputy minister. He's been in the news recently for other reasons, not at all related to this, but for something difficult that he is, in fact, going through. But it is fascinating to see that Lucky Montana is now, of course, a member of parliament for Umkhonto weSizwe. Charles de Wet is an executive at ENS and the tax practice. Charles, good evening. Generally, SARS is not allowed to reveal anyone's details. In fact, it's gone to court to keep Jacob Zuma's tax details secret. Are there circumstances under which they can make public someone's tax information?
Good evening, Stephen. And I mean, Chapter 6 of the Tax Administration Act deals in a lot of detail with secrecy and what can be disclosed and to whom. But there is this exception that that SARS is relying on in these circumstances, and it says that when it's necessary to protect the integrity and reputation of SARS, they can in fact publish confidential details. The only requirement is that they must have given the taxpayer 24 hours notice in the circumstances. So, typically it's not something, but when it has sort of developed to this level and there are false accusations being made, then the law did contemplate circumstances like this where they could in fact go to press with as many details as they like.
And there would be no limit. I mean, if basically Lucky Montana might have opened the door to SARS in a way.
I mean, he certainly has. If you look at the detail, SARS did an audit. It looks like it was, from the period of 2009 to 2019, and there were issues relating to capital gains tax in the circumstances. No, if you take account of the other provisions that apply, SARS would always, once they've issued you with a notice that they will be doing an audit, there's a requirement to, update you on a regular basis in terms of the status of that audit. Once they've got to a final view, they would, sort of issue a letter of audit findings. You would have an opportunity to respond to that. Once you have responded to that, then the final letter would be issued and the assessments raised. So, throughout that process, there's, regular engagement with a taxpayer, and they are given an opportunity to, present their position to SARS. And, certainly once that debt is on the books, there are a number of steps, a number of, follow-ups, from SARS before they do in fact go to court to take this kind of action in the circumstances. So that would typically be the process. So it would be very unusual that any taxpayer would not be aware of any tax debt or tax liability, or the fact that an audit has been conducted in the circumstances.
I mean, I was trying to remember if this has happened before, and the closest my memory sort of came was, I think, Julius Malema over 10 years ago now. He owed SARS 16 million rand. And in fact, I wondered if I'm right, this law actually came in after that, because I think he might have lied about his taxes at one point.
Yeah, so I mean, this is contained in legislation that was introduced in 2011. So it's been in place for a long period of time. So I cannot recall any circumstances where SARS has, invoked this particular provision. I mean, as you say, they have gone to court to protect confidential tax information, and even though there have previously been, circumstances where things have played out in the public domain. I don't recall any instances where, SARS has thought it's necessary to protect the integrity and reputation of SARS. So, the process, the allegations that have been made are very serious, and the claim has been made that it's without any foundation, and SARS wants to refute that.
Thank you very much indeed. Charles de Wet, executive at ENS in the tax practice. Well, as Charles says, extraordinary story. I've been using that word a lot lately because I've been talking about gold, but incredible to see what is happening with Lucky Montana. We'll watch that case very closely. He seems quite defiant towards SARS. I don't know if this is going to lead to him changing course or not. 20 minutes after 6.
The Money Show on 702.
Monday to Friday, 6 to 8 p.m.
Well, you can imagine the confluence of events that sees the Joburg, the chair of the Joburg Mining Indaba, the sort of junior mining Indaba, starting on the same day that gold hit $4,000 an ounce, and I presume almost automatically that led to conversations around geopolitics. Bernard Swanepoel is the chair of the Joburg Indaba, a former mining executive as well. Bernard, good evening. The timing of your event, quite auspicious for gold shares at least.
Yeah, no, Stephen, and I mean, obviously I wish I was back in gold mining. $4,000 an ounce, 2.2 million rand a kilogram. What's left of the South African gold mining industry is really, really doing well. But of course, mining in South Africa has moved on. We're not about gold mining. We're about platinum and manganese and iron ore and other stuff as well. So it was a good conversation.
Platinum, I mean, the platinum price is much higher than people would have predicted, say, 6 months ago. It was almost unexpected. There must be a brighter future for that sector, and therefore for South African mining too.
Very true. 35% up the basket price. As you know, platinum or PGMs is actually a group of metals, and depending on the mine, it's a little bit different. But on average, 35% higher prices in dollar terms. We lose a little bit of that through the strength of the rand. But as a major employer of our economy and a driver of our economy, the platinum industry's health is actually much more significant for South Africa. And it's looking good. I mean, we spoke about the future. We spoke about the investment opportunities in platinum. It is one sector where there will still be new shafts being sunk and new mines being built. So it's really a positive story around PGMs or platinum.
The issue around critical minerals, which suddenly everyone's talking about, partly because of the Trump administration. Is there an opportunity there for us?
Platinum is a critical mineral on most countries' list, including the US, or PGMs, platinum and palladium. So yes, there we are, direct beneficiary. You also get to other things that South Africa happens to be well endowed with, like manganese, features very high on many countries' sort of lists. And then we had a fantastic input from the early work that the country is finally doing in terms of exploration. And we are now also exploring for the rare earths and the lithium and the things which are so hot. But South Africa historically has always been a fantastic geological destination. And the reason we aren't mining more are the issues we have discussed many times. But it's not a bad time to be a miner, quite honestly. The world suddenly has discovered the relevance of mining, and South Africa is a mining country.
No, absolutely. I mean, you talk about the problems. Many of them are sort of human-made, by which I mean they're around legislation, regulation, how we manage things. The Minister, Gwede Mantashe, at your event tomorrow, what kind of reception do you think he's going to get from the industry?
He's liked in the industry. And despite that, we then go on and robustly engage and disagree. Obviously, as the industry, we feel that a lot of the missed opportunity sits in the space of regulatory uncertainty and policies that change, and sometimes it's ideological approaches to things which no longer works. We keep on pointing out that in 20 years, whatever we've done as a country through policy and regulatory adjustments have actually destroyed jobs. It hasn't created jobs. So it will be a robust conversation, but there's a level of trust, and this is why the industry has always welcomed a minister that disagree with us but engage with us. And so it will be a very robust engagement. His team is present the whole time. His team participates in some of the conversations. And so by tomorrow, Minister Mantasi will also speak into the conversations of the last 2 days.
I mean, what we really need in South Africa is investment, and we need investors to feel confident in investing here to grow the sector and to grow jobs. I presume that we need quite a lot to change for that confidence to come despite these high prices.
Absolutely. We're not even there yet where the current mining companies in South Africa are emphasizing or focusing on South Africa. Now, that's always your first metric. Are the South African mining companies significantly investing back into South Africa? And yeah, we're seeing some green shoots, but most South African mining companies are still looking to diversify and to invest away from South Africa. And so the first before we can expect foreign investors to come into the country, we as South Africa have to invest in ourselves, and that is not yet happening at the level where it should happen. But a commodity price uptick changes a lot of things. I mean, clearly we'll see investment into gold now. Clearly the platinum mines will reinvest into platinum mining. And we had some really positive and bullish sentiments expressed by, say, Kumba about iron ore. So I'm optimistic, but I'm not yet seeing the money hitting the ground.
Or in the ground. Bernard Swanepoel, thanks very much indeed. Really appreciate the time. Chair of the Joburg Indaba and a former mining executive. 26 after 6.
The Money Show.
The markets.
Chris Stewart from Portfolio Manager at 91. That line just dropping a second ago. And of course, I imagine the gold price very much on his mind too. And you know what this has done to gold shares over the last couple of months. In a way, I think because, and you can watch gold shares not always being entirely clear as to what the actual peak is going to be because it is quite tricky. I understand that Chris Stewart is with us now, Portfolio Manager at 91. Chris, good evening. The gold price, $4,000. We've been waiting a long time. Finally, it's happened.
Yeah, good evening, Stephen. I was actually online just remaining quiet because I thought you were going to ask me where the gold price is going to be going. I didn't want to answer that question. But it's comfortably through 4,000, as you've said, and showing very little sign of abating, comfortably through 4,000, up 2% on the day, and dragging the various, I guess, other precious metals complex with them, palladium, platinum, rhodium, all up strongly today. Silver at all-time, if not all-time record, certainly multi-year high. Even the oil price showing a little bit of a sign of life this evening. So it's all systems go on the commodity front.
Part of this is around the series of transitions that we're seeing around money, how it works, what central banks are doing. They're buying a lot of gold. But also, I think, just a general kind of concern about the future. And I was fascinated by the Bank of England report out today, suggesting actually that some of the US markets are sort of over-concentrated, that too much money going to too few firms. And I suppose the one question nobody dares to ask, apart from where to speak gold, which is, what if we're wrong on AI?
Yeah, I mean, we have seen concentrations in indices in past periods in history. I'm not quite sure if we've seen the degree of concentration we're seeing today with the top 10 stocks in the US S&P 500, which is supposed to be a pretty diversified index. The top 10 stocks occupying 40-odd% of the market capitalization of that index, as the Mag 7, so-called Mag 7 stocks, and more recently some of the AI, artificial intelligence players joining the party, have really shown unbelievably unprecedented strong returns in terms of their market capitalization and share price. And, the concerns are starting to arise that we're seeing a lot of circular transactions between these companies, NVIDIA, OpenAI, AMD, OpenAI, Oracle. We've seen big transactions taking place over the last few weeks at very, very heady multiples involving huge, amounts from a dollar perspective. But are these a little incestuous, these relationships? NVIDIA will invest in OpenAI, so OpenAI can roll out a whole lot of data centers, and those data centers will use chips that, guess what, come from NVIDIA. And the big question, I guess, that everybody's asking is all of this money is being plowed into artificial intelligence. Yet, if you ask most companies out there, what is the, monetary benefit that they are currently deriving from the implementation of artificial intelligence across their businesses, it's relatively low. And I guess if you ask the players within the artificial intelligence space, what is the line of sight to the monetization and indeed profit delivery from these massive investments that are being made? And again, there is limited line of sight to that. So, you've got very elevated valuations on high expectations, but no guarantee necessarily that those expectations are going to deliver. And I think what's also critical is it's not just the AI stocks that are being dragged along by the so-called AI bubble. It's other equities, it's commodities, the copper price, it's real estate in terms of rolling out, large data centers, it's energy prices and some of the stocks. If you look at some of the sort of smaller nuclear plays in the US, the sort of valuation multiples we're seeing there, because these stocks are going to be feeding this beast that requires vast amounts of energy, being the new AI paradigm. So it's looking quite lofty and heightened levels of risk. Yeah.
Chris Stewart, thank you very much indeed. Portfolio manager at 91. Really appreciate it.
WhatsApp Stephen
on 072
702
1702.
Well, conversations tonight about Lucky Montana, but also about mining and the possible future for mining.
Very interesting point by Bernard Swanepoel. Finally, balanced businessman, balanced viewpoint. This notion that we need a better investment climate. The investment climate under Thabo Mbeki was fantastic, and look at what happened with mining. You didn't see that much mining investment going on here, did you? From outside, certainly not. In fact, you saw mining companies going out there to go and look for assets and look for opportunities out there, not to invest in here. And so this idea that there's a lack of confidence is what is causing this. There's something in there about why it is that management are not South African management. Don't want to look at opportunities in South Africa. It's an odd thing. Still a very resource-rich country.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I mean, the costs have gone up, certainly. And I think electricity is a big factor as well. But yeah, it's something that is worth exploring. But I think electricity is also a big factor. And then with mining, as you know, it's a 30-year game. And that has always been one of the issues. 20 minutes now to 7 o'clock.
702.
702.
Stephen is on X
At Stephen Grootes.
Just going to 7:15. Well, yesterday I asked you how you were using social media. I pointed out in my very limited focus group of friends and colleagues, many people were telling me they were using social media a lot less, and we heard from you on the subject. I had no way of knowing then that the Financial Times was about to publish research that shows we seem to be in step with other countries, and that, in fact, use of social media is down in most places. Not everywhere, but in most places. Dion Chang is the CEO and co-founder of Flux Trends. Dion, good evening. When I go onto social media now, I see corporate communication, if I can call it that. I see AI slop, or I just see people arguing and they're never going to change their minds. Is that turning people off social media?
Good evening, Stephen, and good evening to the listeners. Yes, I do think so. And I looked at that article as well, and it's really interesting that they track that the peak social media came in 2022. So, you join the dots, it makes sense. So, we were in lockdown, COVID, the pandemic, so everybody was on their phones. And I think since then, not only are we kind of less, have less cabin fever, but I also think the disinformation and the bots have also really started to run rampant. So a combination of you kind of look at things, especially even visual social media like Instagram, you think, well, is that real or is it not real? So you're starting to doubt a lot of things. And then if you are on a platform like X, which I just avoid like the plague, the toxic vitriol, and then you don't really know if you're arguing with a bot as well. So the whole bot automated thing with the AI, as well as the kind of the sway of disinformation, And if you look at some of the, ironically, videos from Instagram, the people show you how your agentic AI bots can run 50 social media accounts simultaneously, and that's just one sort of bot farm in China. So everything's become very, very inauthentic, but also very, very toxic.
It's interesting. I mean, what did it take to, I mean, this is a joke, but what did it take to kill social media? Well, AI, which is astonishing, but in a way, isn't it because people who want to make money from social media have actually just killed the goose that was laying the golden egg?
Yeah, it's all become a business hustle. So, I mean, you could sort of generously say that we've reached peak social media in its original sense, but of course social media will carry on because it's now your side hustle, especially TikTok. It's how you kind of do business, and then suddenly business accounts come through. And then, so do you believe in influencer because they've been paid to do that? And then everybody, then when you dive into influencer culture, that everybody's become an influencer. So you also reach a saturation point in terms of that as well. So I think that's, I think it's quite plausible that a lot of people are starting to just turn away from it. And then, the announcement that Meta and OpenAI are going to, generate AI videos, which this is going to turn people off completely.
I mean, everyone's been talking about the supply side with AI, and no one's been talking about the consumption side. And I'm reminded, I couldn't for the life of me tell you the name of the music academic who made the point that more music than ever is being produced, but the number of ears there are to listen to it has not changed. And the same thing's happening here.
Yeah, I think, I think you're starting to see all of the content creators, because everybody's a content creator now, is kind of shouting into the void, because everybody's trying to shout into the void, there's stuff, and who really is listening. And I think that's your point, and I think that's true.
There's a whole industry around influencers, people, and then also people who manage, for example, LinkedIn profiles. I mean, will that just disappear, be less profitable, be outsourced?
Yeah, I think that's why it's quite a bellwether that Meta and OpenAI have announced that their new social platforms are going to be sort of AI generated short form videos, which kind of signals that people are starting to stab around and find different ways of the eyeball time, which is the Silicon Valley business model. Is like keep you on the phone as long as possible to be able to generate ads, and that's been the business model all the time. So it's gone from what it was meant to be, is connecting with friends, and your original Facebook is just a social network, to how do we keep people as long as possible onto that, and with a lot of things in life, once that the authenticity goes, then it's just a commercial gain, and then that leaves a bad taste in your mouth as well.
Is there a lesson here, Dion, about authenticity and what it is to be a person? So we want to be social with human beings. I want to have a conversation with you or with whoever, but I want you to be a person. When people are being just corporate drones, I'm not that interested. If it's an AI bot pretending to be a person, I'm really not interested. And does this maybe point in the sort of dangerous future we're moving into to another point, which is that whatever a company does, authenticity and a person need to kind of be at the heart of it?
Yes, so I would say definitely, absolutely, because we started to see, the word authenticity has been bandied around for a long time. On the other hand, on the flip side, so if I can play devil's advocate as well, is you're seeing a huge uptick. So it's not exactly social media platforms. So it's a little bit a shift into a parallel universe of befriending your virtual avatar or your virtual girlfriend or boyfriend. So people are forming very, very deep connections with chatbots, essentially, because chatbots are programmed, and it's AI, they are programmed to tell you what you want. So people get romantically involved, and we're seeing more and more reports of people really going off the rails. So if you have some slight kind of mental sway to one or the other, conspiracy theory or something like that, your AI bot is trained to validate all of that, and that's why you're starting to see these escalation of cases of people that are really starting to do really strange, bizarre things because the bot told them to do that, or they've been further pushed into the echo chamber and they've gone extreme, whichever way they wanted. We're starting to go anyway.
It's no accident that the one country that is not seeing a decline in the use of social media is the United States, and look at how divided they are.
Yes, absolutely. Because I also saw, again, ironically, as you said, something on social media that sort of pinpointed the small percentage of people. I think they were talking more about X, which makes a lot of sense. But the number of people that were generating the content besides the bots was enormous compared to. So you really don't see a level playing field of who's speaking, of personal views, of everything. So it's very skewed towards the wherever the bots want to go, and then those content creators are pushed up the ranks because of the algorithm, and that's why you're getting such a leaning, and that's why, as you say, there is such division in America.
Dion Chang, thanks so much, CEO and co-founder of Flux Trends. Your experience of social media, 011-883-0702, 0214460567, and voice notes on 072-702-1702.
The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by Absa Corporate and Investment Banking. Absa is a proud lead sponsor of B20 South Africa 2025.
5 minutes to 7 the time. A claim from the Institute for Race Relations that there is a moral fraud that is fake transformation. They say that's entrenched corruption, and that even the corruption at Tembisa Hospital is a result of this. Makone Maja is the Strategic Engagements Manager at the Institute of Race Relations. Makone, good evening. I'll absolutely give you time to explain your critique, but just as a starting point, is it fair to say that the IRR is against transformation? You've argued previously against BEE and employment equity. Is that right?
Thank you very much for having me, Stephen. The contention we have with transformation is that sort of question creates a false binary of whether we need to transform or not need to transform. The question we're asking is which kind of transformation is being advocated for. And the kind the IRR seeks after is that which is entrenched in economic growth. That way we can engender job creation, and ultimately the goal would be of ending poverty. Getting people to acquire higher socioeconomic status by their own individual effort, and having a government create the sort of environment that is necessary to further human flourishing and human prosperity.
Okay, so to put it another way, you do not believe in race-based redress?
Correct.
Okay, cool. All right. Okay, so from that point then, how do you link the corruption at Tembisa Hospital, where, as the SIU's explained, a group of syndicates stole government money, how do you link that to transformation?
Our critique is of fake transformation. These are the policies we argue the government often presents as being necessary to achieve transformation. Yet, if you look at the cumulative effect of these policies have been to wield the suffering of desperate people and purported to be for their advancement, while in reality, they enable greater elite enrichment. And here's what the SIU's investigation and the Madlanga Commission have in common that we argue are the hallmarks of fake transformation. The first is the doling out of patronage and power to friends and family of the politicians. What we've seen across both the Commission and the SIU's interim report has been that the capture of these key democratic institutions has been facilitated through the deployment of people who are closely aligned to political parties into positions that have further looted or corrupted those institutions, hollowed them out and crippled them.
Okay.
What we've also seen...
Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but as you say, there was patronage, there was simple corruption. That's what the SIU says. So to put it another way, health department officials, hospital officials were basically giving contracts to people. What's that got to do with transformation? That's simple corruption. Person A was always going to give the contract to person B because there was a corrupt relationship between them. The race has got nothing to do with it, surely.
No, we're not making it a race issue, rather an issue of patronage, which we argue is not a bug, but a feature of fake transformation, and let me explain how. If you have a system that is built around employing people, not based on qualities that are necessary to prove that they can indeed do the job, but on features that are outside of the ambit of the characteristics that are required for the delivery of that service, you're always going to have the system that is being exposed at the Madlanga Commission as well as the Atsayu report, where people are tempted to award those positions to people who are who have a close relationship with them. That's got nothing. Right? The staffing of government with friends and families of those who are aligned to politicians.
Okay, but that's got nothing to do with transformation. I still don't understand the link.
Transformation is not steeped in meritocracy, right? It moves away from
but that doesn't matter.
Yes, it does, because it introduces qualities outside of issues that are related to whether one can actually deliver or not. And the moment you introduce those external factors, what you end up with is people appointing their own friends and their own families into those positions rather than people who are simply qualified to do the job.
We're talking at Tembisa about a series of syndicates that actually one syndicate would have competing bids to try and sort of rig the system. I mean, that shows surely that this is all about patronage and corruption and not at all about transformation. Because if it were about... Am I denying? Go on.
Are you denying that those syndicates have relationships, familial relationships?
No. But that's the point, is that it could have been any other black person bidding for those contracts. They wouldn't have got them because it was corruption and not transformation. That's the point.
So you're making it a race issue, not me.
You said transformation. It's in your press release. That makes it a race issue.
Transformation is not developed along the lines of positions being awarded based on merit, which is a point that you accept. So there's no point in rehashing that, right? If appointments and service providers were elected purely on their ability to do the job, then you wouldn't have a system in which patronage is created.
But Makone, the people who made the decisions, right, were themselves corrupt. Now, we've had plenty of people who have been appointed to positions for technocratic reasons. I can take you through corporate South Africa if you need. And we've had situations where corruption has been the result. Great example, Steinhoff. In this case, the contracts were not given to people because of their race. They were given to people because of the corruption. That's got nothing to do with transformation, is my point.
Again, you're making it a race issue rather than the fact that transformation engenders a system that is devoid of meritocracy. It doesn't matter it doesn't matter to me if the service provider is black or purple. What matters is that person was awarded that contract.
It didn't matter to the officials either.
No, it didn't. That's why they awarded it to people they had relationships with or people who could buy them.
Yes, but then how do you link that to transformation, Makone? That's my point.
Can you say that again? Sorry?
How do you link that to transformation?
Transformation is a connection, a system of laws and institutions that are built around staffing the government with people who are identified on a list of characteristics outside or beyond the scope of the work that is required of them, right? Such as one's gender, one's race.
Okay, we'll have to leave
Those characteristics have nothing to do with whether or not they can perform the task at hand, and that invites patronage.
Makone Maja, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you. Late for News, Strategic Engagements Manager at the Institute for Race Relations. It's 2 minutes after 7.
And now, The Money Show
with Stephen Grootes on 702.
Let's walk the talk.
11 after 7. Good evening to you. The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by Absa Corporate and Investment Banking. Absa is a proud lead sponsor of B20 South Africa 2025. Well, plenty to come in the next hour. We'll speak to Zanella Njapa, the board chair of the Unlearning Children Foundation, about workplace wellness programs. Also, our consumer ninja, Wendy Nola. What happens if you sign a contract and you haven't read it? Honestly, it's the thing you have to do. I always say take a friend, take someone with you. And Nolene Samuels, the co-founder and owner of BioCure, they're a waste management company. Particularly, they deal with businesses and waste. Looking forward to that conversation from 7:30 this evening.
The Money Show on 702.
Monday to Friday, 6 to 8 p.m.
Well, you heard that conversation with the Institute for Race Relations just a few moments ago, and I'm sure you will have a strong opinion on it one way or another. You heard my views as they came forth, 011 883 0702 and 0214460567. A few conversations coming through it on the WhatsApp line. Tandakile says, Stephen, what is this fallacious divorcing of meritocracy from transformation that people such as your guest always punt? Surely they know the point of BE is to put qualified and capable people from previously excluded population groups in positions that require the qualifications before people from previously favored groups. I'm pretty sure they're all smart enough to know this. That's my tone, Tandakila. I hope I got you accurately. But for whatever reason, they keep throwing out that false argument. Another person, KKM, saying, Stephen, the interview with the lady on the topic of transformation sounded eloquent, but I don't understand her point about transformation. Well, yeah, you heard my view on it. That's all I'm going to say. 13 after 7.
The Money Show.
Business Unusual.
When I was growing up, you almost never heard about depression or issues around mental health. During the pandemic, we saw a real shift, and public figures would go on social media and say, this is what I'm feeling, this is what I'm experiencing, and more, there is a proper public conversation around it. And yet there is some evidence that some of the programs companies run for their workers don't work nearly as well as they should, despite, I think, the best efforts of some of the managers. Zanella Njapa is the board chair of the Unlearning Children Foundation. Zanella, good evening. Thanks so much for coming in. I have to start with the name, the Unlearning Children Foundation. You want us to unlearn what we grew up with?
Exactly. Thank you very much for having me, Stephen. It's a pleasure to be here. So that's exactly it, right? It's living in a world where children understand that it's okay to change their minds. And so they have the tools, they have the capacity, they have the toolkit in order to manage their mental health. So they're not getting to a place where they're in their 50s and experiencing really what Discovery Life data is telling us, that suicide is actually one of the highest claims that we're getting amongst individuals that are in their adulthood.
For men, the idea that men don't cry is the thing you need to unlearn, because that's what leads to aggression.
Yeah, and what we're actually seeing, funny enough, with a lot of our programs within now the workplace, is that it's still the highest reason why they're still not working out is the stigma. And often nowadays we think, no, surely in 2025. But there is still the stigma around mental health and the issues related to it.
You'd rather break your arm than actually cry in front of people, essentially, is what it boils down to for men. Many companies are worried about their workers. They do what they can for them. They have workplace programs, things that, 20 years ago you wouldn't have believed would be what they would be. And yet they still don't seem to be as effective as maybe companies would like.
Sure. Sadly, that is the truth. And one thing that I will say around that is that it's important for organizations to understand that the issue isn't necessarily what you do, but it's how you do it. It's the integration of regulating systems and tools within the way you work already. It's not pizza. It's not cool drink on a Friday, but it's literally how we work and how we've embedded that into our systems. Yeah.
So it's about managing deadlines. It's about managing people. It's about how you manage particularly consequence management.
Correct. Yes. It's like I said, it's nervous system regulation. And that I think is often a really great place to start, is to think about how we help our individuals amongst the stress that's actually not going to go away. So that's the first realization. But it becomes, what is it that we're introducing that helps our individuals to regulate their autonomic nervous system, which is in essence your heart rate, is your breathing, and then just your digestion. And it comes down to tiny little things like physical activity, integrating that, your sensory input, mindfulness activities as well, that just help individuals to do that and how we integrate them. And as Daniel Pink says, the best way to motivate an individual is to find out what's already motivating them. So it's about starting with the conversations around what works at a personal level and then working towards that.
In the 1980s, which feel like the Stone Ages, they're so far away. There would have been no discussion of this. Then we moved into a place where there is a discussion about it. Then we've had what we've seen over the last few years. Could we be about to enter a kind of new phase of wellness, of workplace wellness programs, something that's a bit more about how we actually work, the Scandinavian model? Your boss isn't allowed to message you out of hours, things like that.
I think we definitely are. There are a lot of organizations and across different markets where we are seeing a lot of that. And I think this is a fascinating conversation to have as well about the specifics in various economies, but also whether you've got your government support that can then allow the regulation around that and what that looks like. Because oftentimes the countries we've seen that have been a lot more successful when it comes to that, whether it's European specific countries, it's because there is a support from your public sector that then drives the regulation and drives sort of the compliance, if I can call it that, then from organizations or the public or the private sector, which if they are not regulated in that way, will really want to get their bang for their buck, which makes sense in a way.
How do we assess if it's working? How do we assess if people are, happy is one measure, but how do we assess if people have better mental health? So there's some obvious examples. Fewer suicides, fewer attempted suicides, those sorts of things. Are there other indices we can look at?
Sure, there are definitely a few other things that organizations can look at. And I think that a key part of them is it's almost in two parts. So one is thinking about what activities you have and also what metrics you have under the reactive, but also the responsive. So the reactive and the proactive, So when it comes to how proactive your team is, what are the metrics that are included in there? And then also what does that look like for you and how can you then measure how proactive they are so that when they do then come into stress-related environments or situations, they can manage that. And then the other side of it is when they are in those experiences, now it is actually happening and you do have those rates coming up and everyone responding in the way that they are, not handling their mental health in those types of ways. Then how do you then deal with metrics like your attrition, etc., going forward?
Zanele, thanks so much for coming in. Zanele Njapa, the board chair of the Unlearning Children Foundation, on Business Unusual on The Money Show.
The Money Show.
Consumer Ninja.
How often have you heard our consumer ninja, Wendy Nola, talking about the small print? Well, the small print is what she's focusing on today. Wendy, good evening. All the time, I think we all do it. You want something, whether it's a cell phone or a car, or we've got the child hanging on the shoulder or whatever it is, and you just sign the thing. How dangerous is that?
It's so dangerous. It's so natural. And I think it's partly because if you're dealing with a large, reputable company, you think you have trust. But what happens is that in many cases, not all obviously, but the salespeople talk up the nice stuff and in many cases don't mention, oh, there's a balloon or it's a step payment for this car or whatever. Or if you take out this account, there are these options for extras and, I'm not going to explain them to you. And some of them are pre-selected and if you don't read them, well, And so they sign, they go on what they're told. That's what we do as humans. It's easier to absorb information like that than to sit and read through small print. And therein lies the problem. It's such a basic thing to talk about, but so much of my work involves cases that arose out of the fact that people didn't protect themselves by just reading what they're committing themselves to.
Okay, so if you sign it, what's the presumption? The presumption is that not only have you read it, but you've actually understood it, including the Latin.
Exactly. Well, we do have the right to plain language, remember. But, in fact, I was reading through a case I was following this case where this chap, balloon payment dispute, he said two bank reps didn't mention it at all. And then he signed the contract without reading it. And the banking ombudsman said, it was actually quite a few paragraphs, which was listen to this if you don't read a contract before signing it. The banking ombudsman said, a complainant will not succeed in arguing that they did not read what they signed or that the contents did not reflect their intention. Our courts have handed down judgments over the years indicating that a party that signs a document without reading it assumes the risks, and if the said party does not like what is contained in the document, they cannot blame anybody else.
So basically it's on you.
It's on you
whether you do this online or in person too.
Yeah. And sometimes it's digital now. If you go and buy a car, it will be a digital contract. But my point is that you have to protect yourself by reading the contract, because here's the thing. And some of the salespeople who are chasing a commission and who might not act 100% ethically, they know that when there's a dispute, should there be a dispute, there is nothing to prove what they said or didn't say.
Mm.
There's just the contract with everything laid out and the person's signature to it. And if it goes to an ombud, what I've just read you out is going to be the response. We assume that you've read it and you've agreed to it.
Obviously, what companies could do is just not do this. It's not just remove the Latin and use plain language, but they could spell out, this is the balloon payment, this is the extra, this is the membership of that.
Yeah, so when I take up these cases, Stephen, they do say that. They say, look, there it is. He's put a signature to it, and there's an extra page where it's all laid out. And I've said, but knowing people and their penchant to not read, they're really important bits. Why not make them initial? Initial next to that balloon payment. Make it stand out and make them put it there. Put their signature there. Make them look at it. With if it's a step payment, it's going to go up next year or the year after your car installment. Make them sign there. And in the case that I took up recently with TFG, all these extras, this guy said no one mentioned them, and I didn't read it, but my attention wasn't drawn to it in the contract. I'm saying, you must acknowledge that people do this, that don't protect themselves. So if you want to act ethically, make them sign, okay, you're agreeing to 3 club memberships and an extra funeral policy and this, and make them sign. And I mean, and in the case of someone taking out a gym contract, where I often get this, the salesperson said it was, it was going to be this, but actually it is a contract for a year and blah, blah, blah. So why don't you make them, we've got technology, it's so cheap and easy. Why don't you make it compulsory, mandatory, that those sales interactions face to face need to be recorded? But it's always a no.
There's always it's too complicated. It'll stop us making money. Basically, is the answer.
Or whatever. And I'm a bit fed up with that.
So I mean, in some cases, I mean, you want to buy, I don't know, sneakers or something.
Yes.
Someone offers you a discount.
Yes.
But the discount has a sting in the tail.
It does, and this is what happened. This Cedric of Mitchell's Plain in Cape Town, he went to the sneaker factory in his local mall, which is part of the TFG, to buy a pair of New Balance trainers, 1,400 Rand. He had the cash, he was going to do it, and the salesperson said to me, actually, you can get 140 Rand discount on those sneakers if you open a TFG account. And he thought that sounded like a great deal, so there was a verification call. It was made, and then it took a long time, so I mean, maybe he was in a hurry, and then the woman in the store said, just sign here. And so he did, and he walked out with his card, and having opened the account. And later, and he paid for that one with a discount, whatever it was, minus the discount. And then a few days later, he went online to check that his payment had reflected, and he saw there was a 197 Rand deposit, balance rather. And he was like, what? I've paid for them. And then he was told, no, that's funeral insurance and magazine subscriptions.
From sneaker to a funeral insurance.
Exactly.
And who reads a magazine, I'm sorry to say.
Well, he was signed up to 3 different club memberships, Stephen, and a funeral thing, and it added up to 257 Rand 50 a month that he'd be paying before he made a single purchase, right? And TFG, when I created, obviously said, we've spoken to the salespeople, everything was explained, and because he said those yeses and nos, because there were lots of things that had no's to them, but the things that had the Y for yes, he agreed to all of that, and he's going, why would I need 3 club memberships with overlapping benefits like magazines and airtime and 257 Rand? Anyway, it's all done and sorted, and those are cancelled. He's got the account, but without the extras. Well, there's a compulsory, I think, a credit life thing, but it's and all the cases I've taken up, and I'm talking about it because I had a rash. They've all said, but I didn't read the contract.
So what happens on the phone? So if it's on the internet, and we all do this, whether it's for the iCult phone, and they give you new terms and conditions, you just click yes because you want to move to the next thing. Yeah, it's the same on Android. But when it's over the phone, it's different. What happens then?
Okay, so they have to record the conversation, because the recording of that conversation is the mandate. It takes the place of the contract you sign, the physical piece of paper, or the digital in person, right? So you would think that the Consumer Protection Act says when you sign a contract in person, the company has to give you a copy. Makes sense. You wouldn't want to walk away without one. But when the contracts are taken out over the phone, an insurance product, as so many are, a cell phone contract, the Act only says that the company must keep a copy of it. And I took this up years ago with a former National Consumer Commissioner. I said, this is not fair. So the person, if there's a dispute, they want to know what was disclosed, what wasn't, what they agreed to. They can't get a copy they've got to beg and plead to the company to give them a copy. And they said, the commissioner said, look, it's not on the act, but the company must give them access. And then we have this ridiculous thing, come into the bank and listen, like a little child. Come into the branch of the of MTN or Vodacom or whatever. This is nonsense. I would love to see that act, that's 14 years old now, amended in this. I think it was an oversight to say, why? It's easy for technology. There's a 5-day cooling off period if they phone you and you direct marketing and you say yes. They should give you a copy of that recording, easily done electronically, within that week's cooling off period, 5 business days, so that you can exercise your right to cancel if you want to for no penalty. I mean, don't you think it's just a bizarre imbalance?
So, I mean, there are a few things you can do. You can record those phone calls.
Yes. Download the app, and when the person says we're recording this, you say, that's wonderful because I'm recording my own copy, so you don't have to fight or beg with anybody to get your copy of what went down. When they've got their copy, you should have your own copy.
And then the bottom line is just be very careful. You need to actually make sure you've read everything and understood everything.
It sounds logical, and of course, but it doesn't happen in so many cases. Even people you think would really do it, just they're too trusting or too much in a hurry or something. And my eternal plea is, please read every word. The smaller, the more important it is for you to read it.
And actually, in doubt, take a friend or a partner or someone, have another person with you.
And also, video. There's nothing to stop you videoing if it's a sales thing, face-to-face. Get your own evidence. That's the bottom line, actually.
Wendy Nola, thank you very much indeed. Really do appreciate your consumer ninja. Be careful is really the advice.
The Money Show.
Shapeshifters.
22 minutes to 8 the time. So I don't know what kind of workplace you're in every day. It might be a factory, might be an office, might be something else. But I'm sure you'll have noticed there's quite a lot of waste. Someone needs to you need to put your coffee cup somewhere. You need to put your papers somewhere. You need to do this. You need to do that. And there's actually a market for people who manage that for companies. And one of the companies that's done very well in this is called BioCure. And the person who's really helped to create the business, one of the co-founders, is Nolene Samuels. She's now the owner of BioCure, but she helped to found it as well. Nolene, good evening, and thanks so much for putting some time aside to speak to us as our shapeshifter tonight.
Hi, Stephen. Good evening. It's really great chatting to you today.
Starting a business in South Africa is a tough thing to do. The idea of BioCure, where did it come from? How did you get here?
Fortunately, I didn't have to come up with the idea all by myself. I had the opportunity. I was working as a sales rep in the waste industry, and we were specializing in odor control. And the opportunity came my way to procure the distribution rights for the odor control product. And that's where BioCure was birthed. It wasn't me coming up with this brilliant idea, but with a product that I had at my disposal. And we then went on to solve some problems in the waste industry. And that's how it all started.
I mean, the problem that people have is that their offices and their workplaces generate waste, and it needs to go somewhere. And then on top of that, they do, I think, genuinely, A, want to be responsible, and B, corporates being corporates, they want to tell everyone they're being responsible about it. So you've got that on the one side, but you actually need to find out what to do with this stuff on the other.
Exactly. And there's a lot of education that needs to happen. In fact, the general public don't really know what happens to their waste. When you flush the toilet, where does it all go? And when you put your rubbish in the bin, what actually happens to it? And with the growth of cities and, where we're living and just how people are using the spaces, waste is generated at an enormous rate. And it is a challenge for those that are managing facilities to actually keep up with the demand. And we are running out of landfill space, but we are also just populating areas more and more. And so there is a bit of a struggle and a lot of education. And so these property management companies and those that are in the industry really just need solutions for some of the challenges that we face.
I don't know how much of your business model you'll give away, Nolene, but what is your solution? I presume you collect the stuff. Where does it go from there?
Yes. We collect one element. We actually specialize in liquid waste management. But what we actually prefer to do is to partner with other waste companies, but also mostly with facility management. They are the ones running these buildings, having to navigate tenants, the public, as well as stakeholders that don't want to spend too much money on waste, as you can imagine, and also do the right thing and the sustainable thing. So we partner with different companies, and we come up with solutions for them. And we don't actually do the waste management side of it, but we do partner with waste management companies. And we actually do the odor control side of it mostly to take away offensive odors, and we treat the air with green products. But we also do liquid waste management, which is becoming more and more of a challenge. And that is where we actually partner with sustainable facility sites that take the waste and generate biogas, fuel, and also composting. There's all sorts of things that happen that can be, the waste can be utilized for.
So I know waste can be used for lots of things, and a coffee cup will say it's recyclable and you put it in recycling, but it takes energy and money to then do something with it. And I'm sure it's the same with liquid. So is that an issue? I mean, is there a cost to you for managing it?
There is a cost. So we have to pay the disposal facility to actually receive our waste. That gets passed on to the customer. And so there is cost at all levels. The customer pays us to take the waste away responsibly. There is some bylaws and things where, from the waste management side of things, where facility management companies have to comply with these bylaws. So there is some pressure on them to handle the waste responsibly.
Okay. And I mean, do you find the way in which people want waste to be managed and the way in which the waste is coming, is that changing? So I suppose what I'm asking really is, are there different things to manage in your business? There are different demands and a different kind of product that needs to be recycled.
So in our business, we have solutions to treat the waste, which is always the ideal. If you can handle the waste at the source and treat the issue at the source, that's first prize. We try not to handle too much waste. If we can solve the problem on the liquid waste side of things, if we can actually provide the product that breaks up some of the fats in our case, we don't have to then remove a lot of waste. So it's always best to go straight to the source and try and solve the problem there. But there's always many things or many components to this challenge, because there are different points along the way that has to be managed, from legislation to your customer having certain requirements, all the way down through to the waste disposal facility that has to accept your waste. So there are many people that you need to many areas that you need to navigate at any given time. And then you've got the labor force that has to actually carry out the services, vehicles that have to be maintained.
Yeah, there's all sorts of things that have to happen. All right, Nolene, you didn't just magically arrive one day and become the owner of BioCure. LinkedIn, which is a social media service that still seems to be surviving. LinkedIn, you say on LinkedIn, in fact, your first job was at a video store quite a long time ago. I mean, video stores, I think, gave a lot of people their first job.
I'm giving my age away. But yes, I started working when I was in high school already. And my first real job was at a video store. And I had to be there on weekends and deal with customers and manage the store and all the different elements of it. And so I was thrown into customer service at a young age.
I mean, video stores, I think, have a particular place in a particular set of culture. I mean, people made movies about working at a video store because there was a little bit of time, but there was access to popular culture. But you also were face to face with customers. How important was that first job for you?
It was absolutely instrumental. I think after that, I continued in the customer service industry as a car rental agent. And at a young age, I was given a management position to actually manage a branch at some stage. And even there, I was then dealing with tourists and customers coming at you face to face. And it was invaluable because there's nothing that can really prepare you better than actually face to face with a customer and then having to deal with them and all the different personalities that come your way. And then making sure that they walk away with a smile on their face and that they feel like what they are getting, it far exceeds what they pay.
Nalini, where do you...
the value.
Yeah, I mean, that idea that people walk away, that sense of how they feel when they walk away, I think is so important. Where had you grown up before that? What kind of community had you grown up in? Where, I suppose I'm really asking the old South African question. Where are you from?
Where am I from? I am from I was born in Mitchell's Plain. They call it the Plain. For the first 7 years of my life, I grew up there. So my foundation years were spent in Mitchell's Plain. And then moved around and ended up in Athlone. So I always tell everybody the short answer is I'm from the Cape Flats.
And the community that you were growing up in, I mean, there are different parts of the Cape Flats, obviously.
Yes.
I mean, obviously, we all carry our communities with us in so many different ways. Which part of it were you growing up in? What was it like for you?
So when I was born, it was still, there were riots and things going on, and I don't remember it very well, but I grew up in that era in a blended family. So my mom and dad had 2 kids each, and we actually grew up, I grew up in a blended family, being the youngest of this family. And so the community I was in, my parents were very involved in church work, and we always had people in our home, and our home was always busy and always open to others. And so I grew up in a community where there was the sense of just serving people and generosity, and I didn't feel like I was missing out on anything. I really felt a sense of belonging and community, and we knew our neighbors and we could play in the street, and I felt safe. And as things went on, growing up in the Cape Flats and we moved to Athlone, and then I experienced some gangsterism and there were elements of that. But by and large, I feel like I really grew up in a secure environment, even though I was in the middle of the Cape Flats where all this was going on, but my home was safe.
And I mean, obviously your family would have given you a strong sense of confidence from what you say, the community that you were a part of.
Yes. Mom and dad were, I believe they were my first mentors or my first examples or the people that shaped me. And dad was always working. He was a sales rep, and I learned a lot. He used to take me to hardware stores with him sometimes when he would call on his customers. He had a really strong work ethic, and he was really good with people. And my mom, she was always doing something for others, and she was always, I would say she taught me how to hustle in some respects. If we needed some money, mom was selling Tupperware, or we were doing demonstrations on the weekends in the mall for pots, or we were making Easter eggs, just to top up the funds. So they were my first examples of, I think, mentorship and work ethic and all those things that I carried with me.
We're talking to Nalini Samuels. She's your shapeshifter tonight, the co-founder and owner of BioCure. It's 10 minutes to 8.
The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by Absa Corporate and Investment Banking. Absa is a proud lead sponsor of B20 South Africa 2025.
The Money Show.
Shapeshifters.
Nalini Samuels is the co-founder and owner of BioCure and your shapeshifter this evening. And Nalini, you were telling us about your family, the impact your parents had on you. Was running your own business something you were thinking of while you were growing up? Or was it, I mean, most of us have careers that are really the result of lots of different decisions we made because we thought at the time it was the right thing to do. I mean, would you describe it like that? Or was there ever a vision in your head of, actually, I want to be in charge?
For myself, I think I had access to leadership roles even in high school. So early on, I took a chance on myself and stepped up for leadership roles, which I think kind of started me on this path of really just, taking a leap of faith every time. And I think I'm a product of lots of people that were willing to take a chance on me. And through the process, I wouldn't say I always dreamt of it, because I didn't really have that growing up in my world. There weren't many entrepreneurs to look up to, or even business owners from where I come from. You were told to go into a career and stay there for 30 years and get your long service award, and hopefully you can retire. And that was kind of what was spec'd. So there wasn't this growing up like this dream. But I do remember very clearly when I was working at the car rental company, and I made a joke one day and I said, I'm actually going to have my own business one day. And it was more birthed out of a desire to earn my own salary. I was selling, and I knew that people were buying what I was selling, and I wanted to control that. And so that was really what I thought entrepreneurship or just owning a business would afford me, is I can then earn what I really want to earn. And that is when the journey or the idea for me started forming.
It does come with, you're the boss now, you're the owner now, but it comes with responsibility. And one of the things I've always thought must be such a big responsibility is employing people, because suddenly you're responsible for them and you're responsible for their families in quite an important way.
Absolutely. And I always joke and I say, I don't think people realize the level of responsibility you start feeling the more people you start employing. There are many families, and where we find ourselves in South Africa, it's not just one or two people that's being supported with the salaries they're earning. It's multiples of people. And with our unemployment rate, it's staggering. So that level of responsibility is huge. And therein also lies the opportunity, because as entrepreneurs, you get to do that. You get to provide opportunities for people to really change their lives, and the dignity of work is something underestimated that people don't really speak about a lot anymore. And being able to do that that's one of the gifts I feel like being an entrepreneur gives you, to see that. But then at the end of the day, there is the responsibility. So you have to make sure that the business is profitable and that you are building a sustainable business that can continue to work and provide an income for all the people that you employ.
It's a heavy weight in so many ways. Nolene, with all of this, all of the things you've been doing, do you get to have any fun? Do you get to sort of actually do anything just for fun? Because, do you get to do any, exercise? Do you climb mountains? I don't know.
I have to keep sane. I have to move. Unfortunately, I live close to the mountain now. So that is my favorite thing to do, is to take walks in the mountain. And I also enjoy my family. I'm a family girl at heart. So any opportunity I get to spend with my kids and my husband and us just doing things together, those are the things that I find fulfillment in. And they keep me busy as it is. But I do have an adventure side to me. So if there's an opportunity to go and try something or do something new, I will grab it. So that's how I keep myself energized.
I can hear that you're not afraid to take a risk. I think your career shows that. Is there an element of risk taking that maybe you have, do you think? Have you ever thought of it like that?
Yes, I always thought I wasn't a risk taker, but the more and more I think about it, I have a different view. I don't call it risk. I call it try and see. And it's kind of underpinning how I conduct myself. So I have this philosophy: if I don't try, I won't know. And if it was the wrong decision, I will learn from it. So that's kind of how I operate. I will try something. I do take calculated risks, and I am a thinker. I do overthink sometimes, but generally, when it's made sense in my head, I will do it, and then I will try and see. And if it didn't work, I've learned the lesson.
Yeah, no, that's so interesting. From what you have been saying and from the way I've been sort of hearing you, Nolene, it seems like you still really enjoy what you're doing.
I do. I love business, and I love the solutions that we get to create. And I also enjoy what business can do in the lives of others. And so it's more than a job for me. It's more than just the money you earn, or it's all encompassing. I think I'm enjoying it because I found what I enjoy doing. And so it doesn't feel like work. And even sometimes when it feels the weight of responsibility is there, because I am enjoying it makes it a little bit easier. But it is challenging, I'm not going to lie.
No, of
there
course.
are moments I go,
yes.
yeah, but at the end of the day, I really do love what I do.
No, of course. Nolene, thank you. I've really enjoyed talking to you. Nolene Samuels is the co-founder and owner of BioCure, a very interesting story and a very important one in many different ways as well. Nolene is your shapeshifter on The Money Show tonight.
The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by Absa Corporate and Investment Banking. Absa is a proud lead sponsor of B20 South Africa 2025.
Well, in the US, the Dow Jones up 0.17, the Nasdaq up 0.93, the S&P 500 up 0.57, and we may or we may not have gone past peak social media, but we certainly haven't gone past peak gold at $4,047.27 an ounce tonight. Where will the story end? We don't know. We will keep an eye on it, and we will be back tomorrow night to discuss it all. Good evening. It's 8 o'clock.